Hello friends, my name is Peter Gentala. Together with my wife Allison, I serve on the board of Arizona Families for Home Education. My role is that I serve as the president of the board. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the board to the 2020 online Keynote event. This year was a year of challenges. It's hard to find a parallel anywhere else in my experience, and I know you probably feel the same way. At Arizona Families for Home Education, we had some plans that had to change. We were forced to cancel the 2020 convention, which is normally where all the homeschoolers in the state, or many of them, gather together. That was discouraging for us. We also had to cancel the graduation. But along with these types of challenges, we're seeing an incredible amount of opportunity. And our board is energized because we're seeing more families than ever consider bringing the gift of a home-based education to their children. Our social media, our email, our phones have just been inundated with parents who are trying to find out the best way to educate their children at home. We couldn't get the message out about the value of homeschooling without you. We'd like to thank our members, both the new members who are joining us for the first time in 2020 and renewing members who have been with us for a long time. It's an honor for me to serve on the board of Arizona Families for Home Education. Each and every man and woman on the board is committed to not just bringing homeschooling to their children, but also helping other families. Throughout the course of this online event, we'll be introducing ourselves to you so you can learn a little bit more about us and the role that we play in serving homeschool parents across the state. We're really excited to bring our speakers for this event, Todd Wilson and Zan Tyler, to you. They're exciting, they're energizing, they're humorous, and they've all been very encouraging to us in our homeschool journey. So sit back, enjoy the rest of this event. Thank you for your partnership with Arizona Families for Home Education.
Hi, I'm Allison Gentala, and I serve on the board of Arizona Families for Home Education as the Director of Special Education. This is a new area that the AFHE board has been growing within our organization. There's such a need in our community of families who are homeschooling their children with special needs. Especially now during the COVID pandemic, we've seen so many more families with special needs kids bringing them home to ensure that they have a consistent education and they have access to the therapies and special things that they need so they can be successful learners. This is an area that is near and dear to my heart as a mother of special needs students. So I'm glad that you have joined us. If you have special needs kids in your home, look for further updates on ways that AFHE can support you and help you through that journey. We have created so many resources for you that we're excited to bring, including podcasts and blogs and so forth. So I'm glad you're here with us. Sit back, relax, let us come alongside you and support you in your journey educating your special needs children.
Hi, my name is Joshua Sugata, and this is my beautiful wife, Stacey. Currently, I have the honor of serving as the AFHE Vice President, and I'm here to tell you that AFHE is much more than just a convention or senior high graduation. The entire AFHE community is always working hard to provide valuable resources in one location. AFHE.org is a robust website that features the many voices of AFHE while maintaining one vision. In addition to an exclusive members benefit area, we are all working very hard to provide valuable information through a variety of blog posts to keep all readers inspired. Our government affairs section keeps the community informed of legislative concerns that are vital in preserving our freedom to home educate in Arizona. AFHE podcasts are another way to further engage and promote specific audiences in our community, such as dads and special needs, and of course our YouTube channel. It will always feature videos such as this, where viewers can like and they can subscribe so they're the first to be informed of new content. When you think of AFHE, think of community, and more specifically, think of AFHE.org.
Hi, as Josh mentioned before, my name is Stacey Sugata, and I serve on the AFHE Board of Directors as the Director of Support Group Partnerships. AFHE strives to create strong relationships with groups all over the state who serve homeschool families in their communities. We welcome these groups to be listed on our website as a resource for families who come to us looking for ways to get connected with other homeschoolers near them. If you haven't taken a look at the list of groups we are in partnership with, you can view it on our website at AFHE.org under the Resources tab. Every year, AFHE hosts a leadership conference for the group leaders who serve in communities around the state. At the Leadership Conference, we work hard to help train, encourage, and equip homeschool group leaders. AFHE also offers the opportunity for support groups to have speakers come to events or community outreach programs they might be hosting. Our goal is to help all homeschool families in Arizona get connected in their communities. The support group listing on the website is a great resource that we are always adding to. Another way we help families get connected is through social media. AFHE has a public Facebook page where you can find the private Facebook groups that we host. We have Facebook groups for families considering homeschooling, current homeschoolers, homeschooling with special needs, and a group for support group leaders, just to name a few. If you are a support group leader who would like to learn more about how AFHE can help you in your role, or if you're a family who is looking to get connected, please reach out to us at AFHE.org.
Hi, my name is Michael Abbott, and this is my wife, Chris. We're the newest members of the AFHE board, and we want to address the power of mentoring before we close out our time together. Like many of you, Chris and I are really at the starting line of our homeschooling journey, and as Christian believers, our primary motivation is to lead our children unto a knowledge of the Lord. We're excited, but I'll confess the gravity of the calling initially felt a little overwhelming. And for this reason, families of young children need a support group. They need mentors. And for those of you who have completed the race, or those of you who are midway through the journey, I'd like to impress upon you an awareness of the power that you have within you. Younger families like mine, need the wisdom and insight that you have to give. It encourages us, which literally means you're actively putting courage into us. The AFHE network has really blessed our family by providing these connections, but in order to stay an active and healthy community in a very challenging season, we need mentors. More and more families are choosing to homeschool, which means we need more and more mentors to function as that essential support network.
So if that's you, we hope you will consider investing your hard-earned experience in helping rookie and those of us that are new homeschoolers through a local support group, in your church, on social media, or even in your very own neighborhood. In closing, we hope this video blesses, encourages, uplifts your family as you continue to faithfully honor the Lord in your homeschooling journey. Thank you so much.
Well, hey everybody, this is Todd Wilson, an AFHE fan, and I was supposed to be there in July, and of course, because of all this, I wasn't able to be there, and I'll tell you, I was counting on you. I was hoping you were going to make it, and one by one, conventions all across the country were like, blink, 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 and then there was AFHE, and I was waiting on you, counting on you, and boom, you fell down. But I am so glad I'm able to be with you right now. Even though I'm not enjoying that 120-degree heat in the shade, even though it's a dry heat, we're here in northern Indiana, where right now it's August the 6th as I record this. It is about 71 degrees, and it's cool, and it feels a little fallish, and I'm not liking it because I want some hot heat. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm there in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, enjoying this time with you. I know that as I walk out, my glasses will steam up because of the heat and the air conditioning. But I am so glad that I can be with you. And I hope you're feeling encouraged. Maybe as we get ready to start the school year, maybe you've already started. I'm going to hope you haven't, even though maybe when it's nice and hot, you like to be inside. But I know maybe if you have started, or maybe you've just found yourself kind of thrust into homeschooling. I want to just encourage you, not that it's going to be easy, because it's not. In fact, it's going to be hard lots of the times. But I want to remind you just how good it is, because the name of this talk is Choose the Hard Things, because that's what I want you to choose. I don't want you to grow weary and then stop and miss out on all the stuff that God might have done for you. In fact, I was just inside, and it was kind of ramping up, actually, when I was with my family. And it's been a hard day. I've already gone toe-to-toe with a young teenager, and it wasn't very fun. My wife is feeling a little grumpy today, and we're all tired. We're getting ready to head out in the Family Man Mobile tomorrow, and I think we're just a little all on edge. It's been a weird year, like I said at the beginning. Normally, we travel all over the country, encouraging families like yours, homeschoolers like you, moms and dads, parents. That's what moms and dads are. But it's just been a weird world. And I'm not sure that the media is letting go of this weirdness and wants to hold us back for even longer. So it's hard. But I remember one time when the world was normal, and I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were in our RV, and when we travel around, like we're going to do this next weekend, we're going to drive to a location, and we're going to park in their event parking lot, spend the night there, and then in the morning we're going to go in and do our thing. I remember we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was one of those mornings that I was getting ready to do my thing. I was going to go in and encourage parents on how to be good parents and homeschoolers. And as I was getting ready in the RV, and it's a little tight, the quarters were tight. We had a whole RV filled, and we had 10 in the RV then. Now we have like 5, and so it's a lot easier. But in those golden years, I remember I was getting ready for an early morning session, maybe 8:30, and I was trying to be quiet because I didn't want to wake up everybody, but I did wake up everybody, and one by one, they do whatever you can do in an RV. The boys start to wrestle, and as the boys are wrestling, wrestling turns from fun to somebody gets hurt, and it was the noise was escalating. By the way, you're probably wondering what's all that stuff in the background. This is the Family Man barn. This is where all the important things happen in the Family Man universe. And so I was the back of my RV, the noise was starting to ramp up, and kids are starting to get louder and louder, and I'm trying to calm them down, like, hey guys, I'm going to go in there in just a few minutes, and I need you to be quiet. And of course, you know what kids do. They don't go, oh, Father, we will be quiet. No, they don't do that. Instead, it gets louder, and now people are crying and louder, and I'm starting to come unglued because I got to go in a few minutes and pull it all together. I don't even know where I am anymore, and I'm like, you guys need to calm down. I'm not kidding. I need you to settle down for me. And now my wife's looking at me from our back bed, and she's like, well, what's your problem? Why are you acting this way? And I'm like, you need to help me because I'm about ready to lose it, and I got to go in there and tell them how to be good parents, and I don't feel like a good parent. I said, would you help? And of course, she's just kind of like on their side. And I can remember getting out of that RV, holding the door open, and yelling at all of them through that opening. I'm going in there and telling them I'm quitting. Boom! I slammed the door and walked in ready to quit the whole thing. And right now I'm going to take just a little break to make sure I'm still recording, because I won't be happy if I get to the end and this didn't record. And so I walk in thinking, I am quitting. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not fair. I shouldn't have to do this for a living. I'm going to be a plumber, and nobody cares if you're a plumber, how your pipes look, in your house. And so I'm going in there, and I'm just mad. I'm mad at everything. Mad at being a family man, mad at my family, mad at my wife. And I go in and I go grab all my notes like these, and as I pick up my notes, I see this thing fall out onto the ground. And I knew immediately it was from my son, Abraham. Now, Abraham's an old kid now. He's 19 years old. But he was a little kid then. And Abe used to like to write, I love you on everything. It didn't matter what it was, anything flat, or on the windshield. And he would write, I love you. And electric bill, doesn't matter. And it was from him, and he had spent a lot of time because he had taken a red marker and he had written, I love you. He put a big football underneath. I don't know what that's for. But at the bottom, it said, you're the best dad in the world. And when I read that, it was like God took his finger and he put it on the valve stem of my life and just went, let all the air out. And it was like he said to my heart, Todd, I know it's hard, but you've forgotten how good it is. You know, that's what I am here to remind you of. Not to remind you that homeschooling's hard, because you already know that. I don't need to remind you that marriage is hard, because you know that one too. I don't need to remind you that being a mom is hard, because you know that. But I need to remind you, because you've forgotten how good it is. You know, and the thing is, we don't like hard. We don't like that little formula, hard and good, because that's really the formula I think that God has given us. You know, good things are hard and hard things are good. That's just how simple it is. We like easy and good. If you go up and down the aisles of Walmart as you wear your mask, going the right direction, you'll notice that like all the end caps are filled with things to make your life easier. And they don't just make it easier, they promise to do it in a very quick fashion. It's not a minute anymore, it's seconds. And we buy it, and we buy all that stuff thinking, oh, this is gonna make the job easier, this is gonna have fantastic results. And we're always left a little disappointed. I remember one time sitting in a Walmart near the exercise area, and I see this big guy. I mean, he's really big. Not big like as in Mr. Universe, but big as in a mountain. And he's looking at this exercise thing, and it's got just a little kind of spring that goes back and forth like this. And the picture on the box was like Mr. Universe. I mean, his muscles are humongous. And as this guy's looking at it, and I'm looking at him and looking at the box, and I'm thinking, I wanted to say, you don't think that's going to happen with you, do you? Because you can't spend just a few minutes a day, you know, and expect those huge results. It just doesn't work that way. But they know how to, they play on us. In fact, I thought I could write a New York Times bestseller book right now, just with the right title. Like things like, you know, how to be a millionaire without saving a dime, or you too can be an Olympic gold medalist in just 3 weeks, or how to lose 50 pounds and eat like a pig. You know, we love those things. In fact, there's one that I try to fool or to fake it, but you'd guess what it was. And it was a book that came out, I don't know how many years ago. It's been a while. And it was How to Have a New Kid by Friday. And when I read that book, or when I saw the title, I just went on this tirade. I can remember seeing it in a magazine going, there's no way you could have a new kid by Friday. I mean, that just doesn't work that way. It takes a long time. It took a long time to get him there. So it's going to take a long time to undo it. And secretly, I think I was just mad because he thought of the title and I didn't. He probably sold 1 million books in the first 2 days. But you can imagine my chagrin. And I think that may be the first time I've ever used that word on a webinar. Chagrin. You can imagine my chagrin when a couple weeks later, this box comes in the mail and I see that book. I open it up and it's that book, How to Have a New Kid by Friday. And immediately I'm like, I can't believe you bought this book, honey. Why would you buy this book? And I'm on this little tirade. And she's finally like, you know, Todd, when I finish it, I'd like you to read the book too. And I'm thinking, well, fine. I'm not even going to start the book till Thursday, because why would I want to have to start on Monday and have to wait a whole week when I can just have it the next day? You know, because it's just not that simple. In fact, I've kind of learned these truths. You know, the good things are hard. Good things are expensive. Good things are time consuming. Good things are exhausting. Good things are difficult. They're backbreaking. They're heartbreaking. And they're gut wrenching. And hard things, they're rewarding. They're fulfilling. They're worth fighting for. They're worth dying for. They bring joy and they're eternal. But I did not say fun. And herein lies the problem, because I like fun. I like lots of fun. I like the funner, the better. You know, in fact, I like to think that family could be fun. I like to think that homeschooling could be fun, that even family vacation could be fun, but it rarely is. In fact, I remember one time we were going to the Grand Canyon. We were, when we travel in our RV, we don't necessarily go to a destination. We're driving along and we see a neat place to stop, and then we stop there. So we were traveling around out your direction, and we saw, hey, we're only 3 hours from the Grand Canyon, and we're going to go to the Grand Canyon. So I made the announcement to my kids in the back, we're going to the Grand Canyon. And as soon as I announced it, everybody started complaining. It was like, oh, do we have to go to the Grand Canyon? Why do we have to go to the Grand Canyon? And I'm like, oh, because it's a lot of fun. People come from all over the world to see the Grand Canyon. They're like, but it's so hot. And I'm like, yeah, but it won't be that bad once we get there. And they're like, do we have to stay long? And I'm like, we have to stay as long as I say we're going to stay. And on and on and on they go. You know, we can see a canyon out the window from here. And I'm like, but that's not the Grand Canyon. For almost 3 hours, they complained the entire way. Now, when we pulled into the south rim of the parking lot of the Grand Canyon, they saw this massive canyon and their little mouths drop open. And they're like, whoa. But now I'm mad. You know, and they're jumping out of the RV and I'm sitting behind the steering wheel and they're like, hey, Dad, you coming? And I'm like, I can see it from here. And they finally coaxed me out and I ruined our time at the Grand Canyon. In fact, I'm surprised my wife didn't just shove me over the edge like, oh, look at that. Whoop, you know, and that's how we lost your dad. But I can remember getting back after we'd, you know, walked around for a little while. I got back in the RV. I was still miffed. And I think that's the first time I've ever used that word too. And I got back in the RV and I can remember saying to them, you know, you make it so hard. Now my kids have heard me give this talk lots of times, but they hadn't at that time because I don't think I had given it. But I wish they had said, yeah, Dad, but it's good. It's good. All that we experience is good. Family is good. You know, that's what I want to remind you about. In fact, I kind of believe that, I do believe that the hardness of that situation validates that what we're doing at that moment is good, or maybe not just the event, but the hardness of the people, the relationship says this is good. Because I mean, your best relationships, the hardest relationships. I just got an email from a guy today who was just saying how, you know, he's nice to every other kid in the world and except his own kids. He goes, why am I mean to them? I was like, he goes, we have a special relationship that's close and it just makes me, he goes, sometimes I feel like pretending like they're my stepkids so I would treat them nicer. You know, but the hardness, it validates that relationship is worthwhile. In fact, it reminds me a little bit of going fishing with my dad. In fact, my family, my entire extended family has just spent the last week up by our house in northern Indiana at Lake Wawasee, which is the largest natural lake in Indiana. Hey, it's the only thing we got in northern Indiana, so don't make fun of it. Every year, and this is since I was a kid, so I've been going up there more than 50 years. But when I was a little kid, my dad and I, we would go fishing. He doesn't go fishing anymore. It's just a little too, he's not as steady in the boat and it feels a little overwhelming, feels a little too hard. But back then he didn't know any better. And so we would go fishing and we would go trolling. Now we didn't have a fancy bass boat. We just had this old aluminum boat. We still have it, had an Evinrude motor on the back of it at the time and wasn't a trolling motor. And he would just drive it as slow as he could. He would be in the back and I would be in the front. And he would cast his line off one way and I would cast my line off another way. And he would drive as slow as he could, just like, and as he would putt along, after a little while, we'd talk. And that's why I loved it so much. We'd talk and then I'd say, oh, Dad, I got something. And I'd pull it in. And of course, it wouldn't be a fish. It would just be weeds. And I would kind of slap them off and throw it out again. He'd and a few minutes later go, oh, I got something this time. And he'd stop the boat and I'd pull it in and be weeds again. And my dad, I couldn't really see his eyes because it was always in the evening. But I know they sparkled because his voice sparkled. And he'd say, oh, you know what the weeds mean, Todd? And I knew, but before I could say it, he'd say it anyway, because that's what dads do. He'd say, the weeds mean that we're in a good spot because where the weeds are, that's where you catch fish. You know, I think it's a little bit like what we're talking about. You know, those hard things, they validate that we're in a good spot because that's where good things come out of. You know, they're like little flags, you know, when you're going through this hard thing, it validates. It's like having gray hair, you know, gray hair means you've lived, right? Stretch marks, you know, means you've given birth to some pretty amazing kids. You know, maybe it's exhaustion, dark circles under your eyes from homeschooling. That validates, it says, this is worthwhile. This is good. You know, in fact, I realized that it doesn't just validate. it quickly replaces or transforms into the good stuff. So the hard things transform into the good things. Sometimes it happens fast. I know, like when our first son was born, Ben and his wife, and now who live right next door to us, and they have 2 children who call us Minnie and me Pops. They're over at our house right now, actually, as Ben and his wife are out having a date. But before he was born, I was just pretty convinced that I was going to die during childbirth. You know, maybe it was because I watched the Dick Van Dyke show when they gave birth to Richie. But I just thought, oh, this could be terrible, and we're probably going to have it in our car. And little did I know that it would take a long time for that boy to come out. In fact, people used to call before we had a child, they'd say, oh, it's the miracle of childbirth. After I saw my first one, I would have called it the horrificness of childbirth, because there didn't seem very miraculous at the time. It was terrible. In fact, we took my wife, and she was in labor, hard labor, at the hospital for over 25 hours. I mean, it was terrible. It was exhausting. It was gut-wrenching. It was painful. I mean, it was hard on my wife, too. But finally, they got to the part where they were starting to push, and it took 3 hours of pushing. My wife, I did that breathing thing through the whole thing. I thought I was going to hyperventilate. I didn't think I could ever breathe again. And my wife was in incredible pain, and she was like, I can't do this. She goes, I want to go home. And I'm like, honey, we're committed here. And so it got back to down to those last couple hours, then down to the last hour, and we're down to the half hour. And for some reason, the rooms around us, we were in this like birthing area of the hospital. The rooms around us, they were having babies left and right. I mean, a woman would come in, and when the baby came into the world, she would go, ah, and it was like, and then he was there, and that was it. It was like a mouse ran in the room. When my wife finally pushed that little child out into the real world, she let out a scream that I can hear to this day. It sounded as though her face was caught in a gear, and she just let out this, ah, and it just rolled on and on and on. I still think it's hovering over northern Indiana somewhere. And then it was done. And the nurse, took this blob that was my child, and who would become a father himself, took this thing and held it out to me, this brand new father. And I'm like, who can barely breathe. I'm like, I don't want him. Just take him away. I don't care what you do with him, But his mother was better. And they take this little baby and they put it on her now deflating belly. And right then I saw it. I saw the transformation, all the hardness, all the pain, all the hurt just vanished. And it was transformed into the miracle of childbirth. Sometimes it happens real quick. Sometimes it happens fast for our kids too. I like Christmas time. Maybe you can see it over my shoulder over there in the back. We have some Christmas games. I would have brought those had I been coming there in July. But now you just have to order them online and pay an incredible amount of shipping. Because it takes a lot to ship it out there. I'm not Amazon. And so I love Christmas. I love the whole month. You can see the little Christmas tree over my shoulder there. And we have Christmas books and Christmas audio books and just lots of fun things too. We sell Christmas Advent crafts. And what we do, we take those 4 weeks leading up from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and we have an Advent night, one night each week. And, it's not a big deal. We have a little Advent wreath that we have, 5 candles on, and we light one of the candles and we read a little passage out of the Bible, maybe read one of our stories, do a little craft, and then we close it with a sparkling grape juice and a cookie shaped like a Christmas tree. And so, but I always picture them the same way, and I'm always disappointed because remember, I'm Mr. Fun Guy. I think this is going to be fun, Christmas, family time. Wrong-o. And, but I always picture it the same in my head. I picture, And I mean, this even happened this past year. It was just craziness to me. And I pick up my Bible and I open it up and I'll read this little passage, that kind of goes along with one of the candles we've just lit. And like one time we started off, and this is the one I remember, and it was the Bethlehem candle from Micah chapter 5, verse 2, where it says the Savior is going to come from Bethlehem. And so here I am reading it, all my kids sitting around, the glow of the Christmas tree lights. And I said, the Bible says that the Messiah is going to come through Bethlehem. And then I said, Bethlehem is the Hebrew word Bayit Lachem, or Bethlehem, or house of bread. And as soon as the words are out of my mouth, one of my kids said, "Hey, Dad, we're out of bread." And I'm like, no, we're not talking about that kind of bread. We're talking about, Jesus being born in a town called the house of bread. And then the kid says again, "So are we going to get any bread?" And I'm like, "Well, we're not going to get any bread right now. We're reading this about Jesus in Bethlehem." And he's like, "Yeah, but there was some bread in there before, and it was like all blue." And I'm like, "I don't care. We're not talking about that kind of bread. We're talking about Jesus here." But they won't let it go. They just keep talking about regular old bread. After a while, I can remember, shutting my Bible because I can't get through it now. We can't even pray. And so we eat our little cookie and sparkling grape juice, and I send him off to bed. And I remember right there, that same night, I'm putting them all to bed, and I can remember turning off the lights. And Sam, my always smiley Sam, he's married to and has a wife. That's what married is. And he said, "Hey, Dad." And I'm like, "What, Sam?" He's like, "That was a great Advent night." I'm thinking, do you live in a parallel universe? Because from where I was, it was not a great Advent night. But for that little boy, somehow all that hardness was transformed into a memory that he will hold on to for the rest of his life. And he'll remember how amazing and magical those Advent nights were. And in fact, one day he's going to be disappointed because he's going to have his own Advent nights with his family, and he's going to wonder why they're so terrible. That's because they're transformed. Sometimes it takes a long time. I get this magazine called Reminisce Magazine. It's a magazine written for old people by old people. And it's usually written about stories about, warm, fuzzy times like the Depression. And this one story written by Harriet Bueller, which just sounds like an old person, this kind of embodies that the idea of what I'm trying to express, and really most of the stories that were in this magazine. And it's and I'm just going to read some of it. It says, "In the early 1930s, my parents owned a small dairy farm in Grants Pass, Oregon. As the Depression engulfed the nation, long hours of hard work and constant worry over dwindling income took their toll over my family. My mother collapsed from nervous exhaustion. My father was forced to sell the farm, and we made our last stand on Cruxton Ranch, 200-acre spread of dry land on Louse Creek. Because she said, although we had enough to eat, food was scarce in a lot of homes. There were stories of men who took their potato peelings to work in their lunch pails. The second year we lived at Louse Creek in 1932, when I was 11, was especially hard. She said the dry ground didn't yield enough for us to make a living. And near Christmas, my horse Dolly bolted from her stall and collapsed and died. Her death dampened the holiday spirit considerably," she wrote. On top of that, there was little under the Christmas tree except a couple of packages from a total stranger, bluntly marked, "To some poor little girl." She said, "Somehow my parents never seemed to lose faith, not even when the brutal winter temperatures plummeted below zero and one of their valuable heifers died while calving." And then her last paragraph is this: "It was a tough time, but we made it. What amazes me to this day is that some of my fondest memories come from those very grim years." It amazes me too. How can it be that this terrible, terrible time is the time where all these wonderful memories come out of? And that's because the hardness is transformed into the goodness. There's a story I tell often, and but I'm going to tell it now because it just fits so well. It's the same thing that old people used to tell me in McDonald's when my kids were little. Now I'm the old person, and I'll probably be telling it to young people soon. But it would always be when we'd be on the road and we'd stop at McDonald's because we'd get tired of eating peanut butter and jelly, and we'd go inside, and my wife would always order, because she knew how to split a Happy Meal 7 different ways. And I would do crowd control, which I just sit there, yelling at the kids. And as we were eating, with this little circus of 10 people, I would look over and I would see this older couple. Now, not all older couples look the same, but this older couple, they were looking at us. And I try not to get eye contact with them because it feels a little awkward, but I can't help it. And then after a while, I notice they're smiling, and I start to get annoyed, actually. And I've been tempted to go, "You think this is funny? Come over here and sit for a while, and you won't be smiling." But I don't. And then after a while, the old man and the old woman, they finish their meals because they're by themselves. They're done with their McFishes, and he puts on his grandpa hat, and he walks over towards me. And it always makes me nervous because I think he's going to show me a scar he got in the big war, and I don't want to see it. But then he comes over to me, and he always says the same thing. He says, "Oh, you got a bunch of good-looking kids there." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And then he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he leans down, and I can smell the McFish on his breath. And then he always says the same thing. Always, he says, "Enjoy them while they're young." And then he walks away. I've often wondered if those guys are angels because I've never seen them since. Or maybe at the very least, maybe just some parents who were busy in life and they got overwhelmed by their kids. Maybe they're homeschooling and they just kind of wished it away. And now they would kill for a day of chaos like mine and like yours. But it's too late. Because here's the deal, is all this hardness you're going through, your homeschool day, man, my wife said it was the end of last year, and she's like, "Oh man, our house is just so loud, and there's so much chaos." And I said, "Honey, it's the music of our home, because one day the music's going to stop, and it's going to be quiet, and all the rooms are going to be clean, and everything's going to be put in its place, and we're going to wish we could go back. And so are you." I remember I met a dad in a homeschool convention, and it was just he kind of hung around for part of the day, and as time went on, he'd come back and leave, and he came back at one time. It was towards the end, and it was really light talk all the other times that we had talked, but on the last time we were together, he gets into me and close to me, and he goes, "So what do you do about all the bickering and the chaos?" And I know I was looking for some kind of answer where I'd go, "Well, what you do is you do this, you do a chore chart, and you just check these up." But I don't know. I guess I was just primed and ready to go. But I said, you could do all that stuff. You can holler at them and keep at them, and you should, bring them to a standard of being kind, but they're probably not going to change. So what I would do with all the bickering and chaos, I would enjoy it, because one day it's going to be over. Because that's what I'm afraid of. The Bible says this in Galatians chapter 6. It says, and this is Paul writing to the Galatians, he says, "Let us not become weary in doing good. For the proper time," and we don't know when that is, but it is the proper time, it's the perfect time, "we will reap a harvest if we do not grow weary," and stop, basically. That's my fear. Why would he have to write the Galatians and say, "Don't grow weary in doing good"? Why? Because it's hard doing good, because good things are hard. He didn't have to encourage them. I know it's all bad. You don't grow weary in doing bad things, only in the good things. But he puts that little condition thing. He says, "We will reap a reward if we don't grow weary and stop." The thing is, there's. I'm going to check one more time to make sure I'm still recording. Maybe I may check more than one time, actually. But it's like there are these guardians that are guarding the path. We have this path that leads us to the good stuff. And all the path is hard, but we have to get through the guardians, the hard guardians, to enjoy the good stuff. Again, my fear is that we're going to stop and we'll say, "No, it's too hard. Homeschooling's too hard. I can't do it." And we will never enjoy the benefit. Because I'll tell you, we're enjoying the benefit right now. My kids are all grown up and they gather together often, and the laughter is louder, the chaos is greater, the joy is deeper, the conversations, okay, I don't need that. Hold on, I'm gonna come. Okay, that was something else. That was another notification on my computer. And it just gets better. But we would have missed that had we stopped homeschooling, or maybe stopped parenting. Because I know sometimes that you're tempted to. I can remember my oldest son, and he was strong-willed. He's an amazing kid. But I can remember one time we were battling over something. I don't even know what it was. But it was heavy, and we had revisited it over and over again. And finally, I'm like, I'm done, fine, I don't care what you do. You want to do it that way? Go ahead. I'm finished. And I'll never forget, he was a teenager, and he was late teens, and he got quiet, and his eyes watered up, and his voice cracked, and he said, "Don't give up, Dad. Don't give up." You know what he was telling me? He was saying, "I know it's hard, Dad, but it is good." And that's what I feel like we need to help each other in that. So my thing is, we don't want to put it off. We don't want to wish it away. We want to muscle it through. We want to embrace the hardness because it validates, because one day it's going to be the good stuff. All this hard thing, when you're in a nursing home one day, eating red Jell-O, you know what you're going to be thinking about? You're going to be thinking about these homeschool days. You're going to be remembering the times that you were with your kids and reading books and sitting on a couch or even arguing. You're going to be thinking about those things. So I don't want you to wish it away. In fact, we need each other to remind each other of this. Like when I was at the Grand Canyon, I needed my kids to say, or my wife to say, "Yeah, but it's good, Dad." We need husbands reminding our wives when we're going through hard things. But it's good, honey. Husbands, don't get too close when you say that. We need homeschooling friends reminding other homeschooling friends, not to give them a rule of, "Oh, you know what you got to do, and this will make it so much easier." We don't need to say that. We just need to say, "I know it's hard, but it's worth it. It's good." In fact, we're going to do something antiphonally, and I've done it in big crowds before, but I don't think I've ever done it online before. We're going to do it right now. And by antiphonally, I mean where I say something, and then somebody else responds, or you respond with a predetermined phrase. Like on Easter Sunday, your pastor might stand up in the pulpit and go, "He is risen," and everybody responds, "He is risen indeed." That's right. The commercial that was like, "Tastes great, less filling," same thing. But what I'm going to say, it's hard. And you're going to respond with, "But it's good." Let's try it. It's hard, but it's good, right? Now we can flip it around and say, "It's good, but it's hard." So we're going to try it all together. Ready? It's hard. It's good, but it's hard. And we need each other to remind each other of that truth. Again, I remember one time I was with my son at a hotel. And, when you have a whole bunch of family at a hotel, it's not any easier than being in an RV. I mean, they're arguing over who gets to push the button on the way up to the top up and down the elevator. They're arguing over who gets to open the door with a key card, because there's a lot of power in having a key card. And it's just, but man, when you're with one other person, it's a piece of cake. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a hotel with my whole family, and I'm like carrying in pillows and, a dozen blankets and all matching luggage because it's all in a Walmart sack. And I'm carrying all these and trying to do it. You can't take the cart because the Walmart luggage falls out of it. It doesn't stack. But this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I was in Florida with my bride, just the two of us. It was so easy and so wonderful. But I remember one time I was at a hotel with my son, Sam. And, we came in, we each had a little suitcase, a little backpack flung over the shoulder, no pillows. It was so easy. And we go to the front desk, and then we go to the lobby door, or the escalator, or the elevators, and I press the button. And as it's coming down, I can hear the buzzer inside, the emergency buzzer ringing, like somebody's pushing it. And as they're pushing it, I hear this muffled voice. It was like, I was pretty convinced it was a dad. You know, he was like, you know, he was yelling at his kids. And I told my son, I said, I bet you when these doors open, it's going to be a dad. And I was right. I pegged it. The door comes down, or the elevator comes down, the doors open, and there's a dad in there with like 3 little kids. And they were all going swimming. It was obvious because they had little swimming suits on, no shirts. Their hair was sticking out all over the place. They looked like children of the corn. And, you know, he's holding their hands and they're pulling all over the place. And the dad, I got to bend down here. The dad, it's obvious that he's not going to get in the pool unless there's a drowning, because he has like a dress shirt on and swimming suits and a swimming suit. And he and I, as soon as the doors open, we lock eyes. And it was like I could read his mind. And he was looking at me and it was like, help me. And I wish I had thought, but I missed my opportunity. I wish I had said, it's good, sir. It's good. I know it's hard, but what you're experiencing right now is good. You know, because that is. I can remember so many times, you know, taking the kids down to the pool. And now my kids don't need to go to the pool. I missed those times. It's going to be the same way with you. You know, and so that begins to change how we look at things, how we look at our homeschool, how we look at family, how we look at our marriage, you know, because it is hard. I can't take that away. In fact, there aren't any silver bullets to make it easier. In fact, it changes how we pray. Because, you know, one time I was driving down the road and in Indiana, and I heard this woman singing a song. Her name was Mandisa, and she was singing a song. And I don't know what the title of the song is, but I'm going to guess it's called Stronger, because that was kind of the chorus. And she was saying, you know, like, I'm going through all these hard times, but I'm going to be stronger, stronger. You know, we're going through this difficulties, but I'm going to be stronger, stronger. And the way she was singing it was like, all these hard things are going to make me stronger. They're going to give me character that makes me a stronger person. And when I got home, I thought, you know, is that really what it says? I don't think it is, because it was from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and where it says, Paul says, for when I am weak, not am I going to be strong. He says, but when I'm weak, that's when I am strong. You know, like at that moment. And so, you know, being a seminarian, pastor, I decided I'm going to look this up and see if that's what it really means. And so I looked at the words, and I saw that the word for strength, you know, when I'm strong, is the Greek word dunamis, and that's where we get the word dynamo or dynamo. You know, your pastor said that because that's the only Greek word he knows. He uses it all the time. But I've heard it, but I never heard the word for weakness, which is the word astheno. And I thought, I wonder if we get any English words from the Greek word astheno. So I looked it up, I Googled it, and there was a whole list of them. And here's some of them. Asthenia is the lack or loss of strength or energy. Asthenopia is eye weakness. Asthenopodia is foot weakness. And then I came across one that it just blew me away, and it was this. Asthenophobia. Would you like to guess what it is? Bingo. It's the fear of being weak. And when I read that, I thought, we've got it. The church in America has the fear of being weak. In fact, we're told we're not supposed to be weak. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be overcomers. We're supposed to be on top of the situation, not under it. We're not supposed to be, you know, in the dregs. We're supposed to pray our way through it. We're supposed to muscle our way through it. I don't think that's what he's saying. He's saying, you know, when we're weak, that's when we're strong. And why is that? Because I think that is the address that Jesus shows up at. You know, you think about it. I mean, whenever there was a weak person and Jesus crossed his path, he did something miraculous. If they were blind, you know, or deaf, or lame, or dead, which is as weak as you can get, he did a miracle. But whenever he crossed paths with someone who was an overcomer, who had it all together, he seemed to chew them out. And so that changes then how we pray. Instead of praying, you know, God, would you just change everything? You know, make my homeschool better, make my children more obedient, make my husband better. Instead of praying that, now we pray in the hard times. We pray, thank you. Thank you for a hard homeschool because I know it validates that what I'm doing is worthwhile. Thank you for a hard teenager because I know one day I'm going to look back at this and remember it fondly. Thank you for a hard marriage because I know that out of it, good things are going to come out of it because when I'm weak, that's when I'm strong. You know, it doesn't make sense, but it is the truth. It is the truth. You know, and again, I know this. I know when, I don't know how many years ago now, 8 or 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, my wife and I went through this really hard period. It was like a couple, 3 years, maybe even more, 4 years, maybe even more. In fact, even now it raises its ugly head every once in a while. And it was really hard, and I hated every minute of it. And I didn't write this book at that time, or didn't give this talk at that time. But there were times I'm like, this is just too hard. This is just too hard. I can remember laying in bed. There would be times where I would be laying next to her, and you know, and she's rolled over that way, and I'm rolled over this way. We're both mad at each other, and I'm like, this is too hard, God. And I remember one time, one Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know if it was the day of Thanksgiving or the weekend, you know, that weekend. And we had just had another, you know, boom, boom, boom confrontation. And again, it wasn't one thing, it was everything. And as I laid in bed, again, it was Thanksgiving. I could almost hear God say in the darkness, Todd, you haven't said it yet. And I mean, I knew immediately what he was saying. It was like, it's Thanksgiving, Todd, you haven't said thank you yet. Oh my God, I can't do it, God. It's just too hard. And it was like I could feel his smile, like, do it, Todd, do it, come on, you can do it. And through a sheer act of obedience, I prayed and I said, dear God, thank you for my hard marriage. Because I know that out of the hardness, goodness is coming. I may not understand. I may not see it right away. I may not see it to the very end. But I know in the proper time, I will reap a reward if I don't grow weary and stop. Again, I wrote to a guy today, an email, who is going through a really hard time in his marriage. It's his fault, you know. And his wife is like, I can't take this anymore. And, you know, the husband is like, I'm going to make it work. But I know that once you don't get a response from your wife for a month or a year, it's easy to say, she's not going to try. I'm not going to try. We'll just let it go. I tell you, if they do that, they will miss out on the reward. In fact, just the opposite. They're going to have to pay the price for stopping. Their kids are going to pay the price for them stopping, for him stopping. I'm putting it on the dad, by the way. You know, I promise you, because God promises that you will reap a reward if you don't grow weary and stop. So that brings us to the end. Again, I don't have any magic formulas for your hard life, because family is hard. You know, it is hard, but it is, say it with me, good. You know, and again, I'm doing this because these times go by really, really quick. In fact, about a month and a half ago, not even that long ago, a month ago, we celebrated my oldest son's birthday. We were next door at his house on their big deck, and we were passing presents around, and he was opening up presents. And my son's a huge history buff, and he's got a library that he's made some big shelves, and in his head he pictures, you know, something like Beauty and the Beast that goes all the way to the ceiling. And he has historical artifacts. He's got a newspaper from Gettysburg, you know, at the time of the battle, and he's got some other things and some pictures. But he wanted a World War II helmet, Army helmet. And so we looked on eBay, we ordered one, and it came. And he opened it, and he was like, wow, that's really awesome. And one of the people, it was like his brother, said, oh, put it on, Ben. And Ben took that helmet, and he put it on his curly head, and he stuck it over, and he looks over at his wife and in our direction, and he smiles. And I'll tell you, it was like the world went backwards. And all of a sudden, I see this 27-year-old boy transform into his 10-year-old self. And I saw my little son with that same smile. And And then he took the helmet off and he went back to being the old Ben now. And I thought I had almost forgotten what he looked like. I almost forgot that innocent smile that he still has. And it was like a gift from God, actually. But it went that fast. I'm telling you, we would have missed that if we had stopped homeschooling. Or I would have missed that if in that room when he and I were doing battle, if I'd said, I'm done. But at that moment, it was like a little taste of that reward. And the reward is still coming because we still enjoy the relationship. So I'm just going to encourage you that when you are faced with that hard time, choose it, embrace it, because it's the best. It's God's best. It signifies it will be transformed into, and one day you're going to look back and you could wish you could do it all over again. Well, hey, thanks for joining me. Again, I can't wait to come back out to wonderful Arizona to be there in person. Just a little commercial before I go. Again, you can check out our website. I'd really like to offer you all free shipping, but I can't because during this time, it just eats it all away because it costs a lot to get it there. But we've got some things that I will offer free shipping on. And one of those is that I've been holding on my lap that I bent over halfway through. And it's this t-shirt. Because not only do we do Family Man Ministries, let's see if I can do it upside down. But we also we just started a year ago, the Smiling Homeschooler. In fact, it's just for moms, just for homeschooling moms. Because we want to see you smile. We want to remind you of this. We want to remind you of the real ugliness and remind you of the real joy. And that you're not alone. And so we came up with some t-shirts, and maybe you can see it. It says Smiling Homeschooler, and it's got that kind of, definition thing underneath. But here's what I like. By the way, these shirts are the softest shirts you can imagine. And it says, a Smiling Homeschooler, a mom who smiles because she loves her kids like crazy, knows she can't mess them up, and doesn't care what others think. See also, best teacher, relationship builder, dream fanner. This shirt is just for you. And I will offer free shipping. In fact, you can go to our website for $20. Shipping is included in this wonderful shirt, and we'll send it to you for free. We want you to get one, and we want you to sign up for our weekly email, the Smiling Homeschooler. We send it out every week. That's what a weekly email is. It's free. It's real short. It includes lots of smiles, lots of fun stuff, reminding you over and over again of the importance of the relationship in your homeschool. We also do a weekly podcast called The Smiling Homeschooler. You can see it live on Facebook at the Smiling Homeschooler community on Facebook every Tuesday at 9, which I think would be like 1 o'clock in the afternoon where you live, or whatever, 3 hours from 9, 6 o'clock in the afternoon or in the evening. And I'd love you to be a part of it. Again, you can find us on the web at thesmilinghomeschooler.com. And Mom, I just want to pray for you real quick, and then we'll let you go. Dear God, I just thank you for life and family and homeschooling. And it is hard, but it is good. We thank you that you gave us a promise that if we didn't grow weary and stop, we'd reap a reward. And I pray for some of the moms right now, and maybe a few of the dads who are listening, that you would show them a little bit of that reward really soon because they need to see it, because they're so, so tired. Give them the strength to continue. Help them to encourage one another, not with some flippant answer, but that even in the hardness, it is worthwhile. It is good. And we pray this in your name, and all the homeschooling moms and dads said, amen. Hey, we'll see you next time we're out in Arizona. Now I got to turn this thing off.